All right. So the first topic says it's about Doctor Strange, and it says viewers think that the Doctor Strange 2 rating was too dark for its age rating, and it's different in the UK, but here in America that's PG-13 is what that's called. And some people were actually making arguments. Now, Dane, you haven't seen it, but we saw it, and the first thing that I said was like there were horror elements in this movie, mainly because Sam Raimi is an established horror director. But I wouldn't have pegged it as being a horror movie.
What are some horror films that he directed?
Evil Dead.
Never saw it.
Okay.
Is it gruesome though?
It's not good. There's absolutely like violence in the movie, like that's done in a more implied fashion. I'm thinking more to the scene with the Illuminati characters where spoiler alert, guys, if you're still waiting to see Doctor Strange, I will talk about some spoilers here. I'm so glad I remembered that beforehand. I never remember beforehand when we're doing this. So, where Scarlet Witch basically cuts down all the members of the Illuminati in vaguely kind of gruesome ways. She buries Monica Rambeau or Captain Marvel in like a pile of rubble, and you see her hand kind of go limp. Black Bolt, again, guys, spoiler alert. She who can like destroy things with his voice. She like closes his mouth so when he tries to speak, like
it reverberates
back. So that's just fairly gruesome. And then there is the
I fell asleep for those parts.
She was less of a fan than even a lot of other people, and I was only really a fan of Scarlet Witch in this movie. But there's also the part where
I feel like sleep. What was it? Dream walking.
Yes.
Doctor Strange.
Where his like face
in his
is all
corpse.
Yes.
That's a little gruesome looking.
I think that's what most people are referring to, but it's done in such a one thing that an argument that could have been made is like if it had been done with practical effects, it would have been more gruesome and more noticeable. Yeah. But since it's all done in post-production and it's all done with CGI, it looks kind of cartoonish.
They should have gone to the effort of doing practical effects for that, because if Walking Dead can do it, you can.
Yep. So it says loads of people coming out of what? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. So one person wrote, how the hell is Morbius a 15 and Doctor Strange a 12A? That they have a different rating system in the UK. It says, just finished watching Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and I need a nap. I'm also slightly disturbed at what can pass through as a 12A rating nowadays, but maybe me being a bit of a granny. So that's one thing I thought was funny is I went looking for more movies that in the past that have like either gotten PG-13 ratings that people thought should be R, or ones that people thought could have been better if they had been rated R, but they were rated PG-13. And that's a fair big problem in Hollywood.
Isn't R so
17 and over can go and under can go if they're accompanied by a parent.
Correct, but like in order to achieve R, I believe it has to be like gratuitous violence and like nudity and sexual content.
Language ends up being a bigger factor in a lot of these cases than.
And they didn't have any.
No bad language. Like I said,
movie.
On TV, like if you're on cable TV, you're allowed like one F word per season. Yeah. Breaking Bad was famous for like always saving their one F word. But this article is from Variety. It says, what spell did Marvel cast on the MPA for their Doctor Strange 2 to receive a PG-13 rating? And it says, I've never wanted to strictly follow ratings advice, and neither did my parents. And the guy talks about how his first movie was like Revenge of Michael Myers, like Halloween. Like I'm sure that traumatized him for a bit growing up. It says... they basically talk about how people can't really agree on anything. He says, so Marvel's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, described by Marvel head Kevin Feige as the franchise's first horror film, which received a PG-13 rating despite intense sequences of violence and action, frightening images, and some language. I think the some language is what kept it from being put over the top as an R rating. And also there's almost no blood. So there's a lot of violence, but I
don't remember any blood at all.
So one of the ways that they do that is by limiting the blood.
In video games, blood is definitely like the factor that makes it go to mature. So
yes.
If they're cognizant of things like that, that's how they can justify a PG-13, I think.
All of the attacks that I saw them do, at least when I was awake during the movie, were like, they just looked like flashing colors and like flashing lights and teleporting and stuff.
Which always feels very so they talk about this here. It says it's debatable whether Doctor Strange was strictly a horror film or a superhero film with horror elements, which is what it is. I don't think that's debatable. It's a superhero film with horror elements, but with brutal scenes of people getting cut in half, shocking jump scares, and a sequence that is a terrifying, albeit terrific, ode to Jack Nicholson in The Shining, we can safely classify this entry as the most adult MCU outing to date.
Really?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it says studios have done their best to avoid R ratings for tentpole films because it limits the audience that's available to it. Deadpool did it and made like $700 million at the box office. Obviously, Joker did an R rating and made $1 billion at the box office without a China release.
But those ones leaned into it.
Yes.
Versus this one, it would have been like it's just like a happy little coincidence that's a little edgy.
Yes. So one of the things that was interesting about this, I think back to when the movie Scream came out. And basically what happened was it wasn't necessarily always the violence, it's how intensely it's edited. So that when the movie Scream came out, basically they had to re-edit the intro scene where Casey Becker gets hung from a tree and her boyfriend gets gutted, and they had to like re-edit it in a way that like they had to add a scene where they approach Casey Becker's hanging body from a tree. They had to like fast zoom into it and give it almost a more it's not meant to be that way, but it changes the tempo, and that got them through their R rating, because otherwise they were going to get an NC-17 rating. And what Wes Craven did when Scream 2 came out, because he just couldn't get them to budge on so many of the things, when Scream 2 came out, he shot it extremely gory in a way that it was never meant to be, and then gave them the extremely gory cut. So when they asked for changes, the changes he made were the changes he wanted to make, which got him the R rating he wanted without question.
I think that you can edit violence and even like sexually suggestive things in a masked way that actually comes off as more visceral than just showing everything.
The Tarantino cut, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
your imagination is more graphic than what they can show you.
Have you seen Reservoir Dogs?
No.
So it's a classic film, and it's kind of a mobster film. And there's a moment where one guy's in a chair, and they're trying to like intimidate him, and so they cut off his ear. And what they do is like they kind of show like the struggle of it, and then they pan out the camera out of frame, and you just like hear it.
Oh.
So it is gruesome in your head because like you see the initial like force. But obviously they don't show you like the actual action. And in my opinion, that's like the move for these things, be it sexual or violent.
They talk about in The Dark Knight when the Joker puts the pencil through the guy's eye. That's all implied. You don't see it actually go into the dude's eye. It's a trick of the camera. Same with when he puts the knife in the dude's mouth, and then it cuts to off camera and there's a hard sound effect or a hard percussion from the score, which is to imply what happened there. And that's just because Christopher Nolan knows what he needs to do, and he's an incredible filmmaker.
I think that's enough. I think that's enough. Like, you don't need to.
So yeah, like movies that lean into it need to lean into it all the way. You can't half step it, otherwise it's like you don't know what you want to be. They use an example here that I think is really fascinating. Did either of you wouldn't even have been born yet, but there's a movie called The Good Son.
I'm 32.
Starring Macaulay Culkin, where he plays an emotionally disturbed child. I don't know if either of you have ever seen it.
How hard must that have been for him? Right?
Yeah, right.
That just sounds like The Sixth Sense.
But it's he's
disturbed child trope.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. But in this one, it says they talk about it here. It says the thriller features no nudity, little to any gore, despite a climax where Culkin is dropped off a cliff and lands on a rock, which the audience doesn't see, and his broken body is seen from an unfathomable distance away, and has the actor dropping his very first "Don't F with me" on film. The film received an R rating for acts of violence and terror involving a disturbed child. That doesn't gel with the process for the young adult franchises like Hunger Games, where it's literally kids hunting down and killing other kids.
Is that the one where there's like two kids, and the one is like a super evil kid?
Yeah.
And the other one's like the step kid, but still kind of sweet. Oh my god, that movie's wild.
Mm-hmm. That's a product of its time. Like, you're not going to get that made today.
But
no way.
They're like actually really young children in that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the Hunger Games is different because they're all like adults cast
vaguely.
As
one was a child, and that one's the one that led to the revolt.
Yep. So it's interesting to me that
Ruth.
I would like to see, like, there's some really great movies where they talk about movies that either should have been rated R or would have been better. Like there's a distinction there. Like, is this a movie that was so violent? Like, how did they get away with it and make it PG-13? Or are they saying like it would have been better if they had leaned into it and done an R rating? And one of those examples is, of course, The Dark Knight. There's a lot of people think it would have been better as an R-rated movie. I actually disagree.
No way.
I don't think that one needed to be R-rated at all. They talk about
you know what? I think it would have taken away from Heath Ledger's performance because it had you focus on the gritty instead of the creepy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Casino Royale, which is a James Bond movie, which was pretty violent.
Yeah, he gets tortured.
It's not cartoonish like later installments.
It's my favorite one.
Yeah, or that's out of all of his movies by far.
It's my favorite like Bond film.
Really?
Yeah.
GoldenEye's my favorite Bond film.
That's a good one.
GoldenEye's
solid.
But they list other ones here. The Force Awakens. What? Like Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Why would that need to be rated R? That doesn't make any sense.
Nothing about that movie.
Taken. It says a deleted user cited Taken as example of a movie that pushed its PG-13 rating. He said there was an 18 here. I don't really see how you could get past the scene where he hooks the guy and then maintains electricity. So like where he electrocutes guys.
There's an auction too.
Yeah, like
that's like super disturbing.
But that's when you get into it's not just about gore. It's about what the actual content of the movie is. And I would think that maybe Mary, you would agree that maybe they get away with more with the themes being bad because people are more focused on the violence being bad. But some of these themes are just as bad.
I agree. I mean, what bothers me more than anything about Doctor Strange 2 was not anything related to violence. It was just that witchcraft is a theme in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, he's a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Yeah, like witchcraft is a major theme of the plot, and that's something that I have a huge problem with. But like now the focus is being shifted to
violence.
Oh no,
gore.
like you could see his teeth in his skull or whatever. Like you're kind of like focusing on the wrong thing. And like there's a point of contention as to what is appropriate for younger audiences to see these days because children's innocence has been so like
warped.
What I think is intentionally targeted. We're still like in a debate about what is appropriate for them to watch.
Yeah. And one of the actually, now that I think about it, the scene of him, because we just talked about The Dark Knight, the scene of him, what's it called again? Daywalking? Dead walking?
Dream walking. Why do we keep forgetting
Jaywalking? I'll just call it jaywalking.
Jaywalking.
It's
in the alternate universe.
Narratively, the movie's kind of a mess, so I don't feel as bad about that stuff. But the way they do his face in that is actually just like how they do Two-Face's makeup in...
Are they trying interesting stuff? Because everyone says like this is such a weird Marvel movie. Is it like even worth like what the direction they're going?
It's not going to be for all the Marvel products from here on out. This is like I said. I was always surprised that this movie got made by who it got made by because it's the Sam Raimi movie,
right.
And Marvel tends to hire nowadays. They hire new directors with less clout.
He's the original Spider-Man director too, right?
He is.
Those were freaking awesome. Like,
but those
why did this suck so much?
Because this wasn't
he's niche. He's a niche superhero. Doctor Strange is like no.
Oh, Doctor Strange is. I was like Spider-Man's niche.
No, not Spider-Man. It's like
I was like, what the hell? No, but Sam Raimi is a niche director in general. And what's weird though is he's got a big name, and he's got a bigger name than most of the directors that Marvel hires because they prefer to be able to control what gets in, what doesn't get in. And Doctor Strange had a ton of reshoots, though I wouldn't be able to point out where the movie was such a mess in structure that I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones were obviously reshoots and which ones weren't.
Have you liked any of them? Like
No.
any Marvel? Not a single one.
I mean, to be fair, I have not seen like I would guess 99% of it, but everything I have seen, I found like super boring, and I kind of think, in a way, it's like too childish for adults, but then like not childish enough for children.
Yeah,
it's just
teens.
It kind of caters to the trapped adolescence we have with adulthood now.
Yes,
That's what it is.
To like late millennials who like say the word adulting.
Yeah,
like that's who it's for.
You know, that's funny.
That was the last time Bill Maher was funny, when he like derided people for using that term.
There's a lot of video game ads, and like the video game ads now are like, remember when you played this as a child? Now you have children.
They need
you
your
can play
nostalgia.
with them. It's like, brother, no one that's playing this has a girlfriend, much
Much less
less a
kids.
child. Yeah.
Your children. Wait, what?
It's like that may work like when they advertise Sonic the movie. Those guys might have kids because they're not playing the games now, but they're not. If they were like, play this new Sonic game with your kid, he probably doesn't have kids. He's probably. It says so. This is where I was talking about the horror elements and where they divert. It says so. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness slip one by the ratings board? No, likely the violence and horror elements were seen through the lens of being conducted by superheroes and supervillains, which is how parents taking their young children to see the film would likely interpret the images and actions, thereby making it PG-13 and appropriate for audience. That's really interesting because they're making it about how it's interpreted by viewers, not how the MPA interpreted it themselves.
Not by objective standards.
Yes, yeah. So it's literally, they're basically saying it's crapshoot. It could be whatever you want.
But the thing is, like, I feel like the easier the public is to shock or scandalize, maybe the better. Like, I don't think we should be less easy to scandalize.
Yeah.
You know
Only
what I mean?
if it's tasteful.
It says that
In my opinion.
the PG-13 rating was introduced in 1984 after irate parents received media attention for arguing that Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was far too disturbing for its PG rating. So they had to find something between PG and R.
There's a really disturbing scene in that movie. I've never seen the movie, but like I saw one where it's like this little girl, like, you took advantage of me. He's like, you know what you were doing. And I was like, excuse me? What?
It was also a weird time. Like, if you're like, RoboCop was absolutely marketed to kids. There was like RoboCop toys, and RoboCop was famously it's just an extremely violent movie with lots of drugs and lots of dudes getting their dick shot. And
So
like,
it's funny you mentioned that because like, so when I hear the UK rating system and the US rating system are different, it makes sense because like I hear here like violence and gore is like, who cares, America?
But also,
shoot a
like,
gun.
violence and gore is more part of our real daily lives than theirs.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how like someone got shot. Like, what is it, a Tuesday? Get out of here.
that does feel like something that like the people here, but I also think that's overdone too. Like, people think that we're all like that. That we're all just like in the UK, they think we're like that.
They think they are more civilized, and they're not. But it is true that like violence is more part of our culture.
Hey, I am both Hispanic and American, so
violence
it's
is part of our
Yeah.
birth as a nation.
Yeah.
So
I would
it
have
only
to see the
makes sense.
stats. I would have to see the stats on, just because there's no gun violence in the UK.
yeah,
but
they still have like knife violence.
that's a huge problem. Like, did you ever see that thing where like the cops are like, we got a big haul, and they like, normally the cops put all the cocaine and the guns on there, and it's a bunch of like table knives and
They
stuff.
do acid attacks over there, dude.
Yeah.
They like throw acid on chicks. Like,
Yep.
it's wild.
Yep. So, I'm sure it's different, and I'm sure it's different in other countries. Like, their ratings. I don't know what the rating systems are like in other nations, but I'm sure it's just as difficult because different countries have different value systems.
Yeah, maybe they didn't say like tea and crumpets enough. You know,
They didn't say jolly good show. and
Oi, mate.
cheerio.
That's man. We're just
I'm a wizard.
we're just being mean to British people now. Why are you guys
Yeah, it's
doing that?
fine.
Piers Morgan uncensored.
Yes, nothing's off limits.
Nothing is off the table.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.